When someone asks you, what do?
You do whatever it takes. That's what a man does. A man does whatever it takes. For me, I became an entrepreneur.
Out of necessity.
Well, yeah, because I was unemployable.
Welcome to another episode of the Creator Method podcast. So for those of you listening at home, you may notice a new voice. So I'm going to take a second to introduce myself. My name is Ariel, and I am the proud chief of staff here at Creator Method. So I have the great pleasure of sitting with Gary. And actually, I saw that you posted on your stories. This is the first time that you sit down and do this. So
yes.
Okay. All right. This is a real honor then. Thank you so much for trusting me with this.
It feels a little weird, because usually I'm in that chair doing the interviews and reading the intros. So this is great.
Yeah. No, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I've learned that not a lot of people know that much about you. So I'm excited to dive deep and have people kind of know the real you. Yeah.
I feel like I'm like Austin Powers. I'm an international man of mystery.
Love it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's a good personal brand to have.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily correct, but I just made it up right now.
Well, okay. So while many of you listening already know my guest today, for those of you who don't, I'd like to do a quick little intro. So Gary Lipovetsky is the co-founder of both Creator Method and Valeria Inc. He was born in the former Soviet Union in Ukraine and immigrated to Canada at 3 years old with his parents who survived both the Holocaust and the Soviet regime. He grew up in financial insecurity, shaped by generational trauma, and a constant fear of losing everything. He started hustling early, launched his first real company in 1999, and in 2012 raised $32 million in venture capital, much of which was an exit for him. He then met his now wife, Valeria, who is 18 years younger than him, and together they built a global creator-led media business reaching more than 6 million people and growing, generating tens of millions of dollars in revenue. As a husband and father of 3 boys, Gary teaches creators how to scale their personal brand and build durable businesses behind the content. So that's pretty impressive.
Wow, very nice. Yeah. Good for me.
Good for you indeed. And so what I wanted to do to get started was highlight the fact that while we were sitting together prepping for today, one thing really popped out at me, and that was that you wanted to underscore a theme in your life that you've consistently operated from a place of survival, not strategy. And that's really interesting. And it's interesting to me that you really want to make that understood. You told me that you didn't want to be seen as this typical rags to riches type of comeuppance, right? But so I think for people to contextualize the importance of this, I want to start by having you take us back. Take us all the way back to how your parents ended up in Canada. I know it's a long and beautiful and sad story in many respects. So I'd love for you to start there. Can you tell us a little bit about how you ended up in Canada?
Well, yeah, we can start talking about that. But do we want to go even as far back as like World War II, 1942, and kind of the origin of my family? Because I think there's a lot of context there. Yep. Before moving to Canada in 1976. So I'll start off by telling you. So, for example, my mom, she was born in 1938, and we're Jewish. I'm Jewish on both sides, and my mom, at the age of 4, which was 1942, which was when the Nazis were attacking Ukraine. So, again, just to set the tone, just to kind of understand kind of the origin of my family, is that in 1942, when the Nazis were attacking, my mother, who was one of 4 children, she was the youngest. She was 4 years old, and she had 3 older siblings. Her eldest sibling was 17. Her brother, my uncle, and when the Nazis were attacking in 1942, the Ukrainian army, or the Soviet army at the time, because it was all Soviet Union, they came to each house and they called on the eldest sons, at a certain minimum age, to come and dig trenches to defend the city, so that the soldiers could like sit in the trenches and defend the city. And so they called my uncle at the age of 17. Again, my mom was 4, and then he went to go dig trenches. So who was left at home was my grandfather, my grandmother, my mother, and her 2 other siblings, her older sister, and her other older brother. And at some point when they were digging trenches, somebody ran to the house and told my grandfather, the Nazis are attacking, and you have to get out now. You have to leave now. You don't have time because they're about to come. And my grandfather said, well, I'm still waiting for my eldest son. He has to come back. and he was told there's no time. You have to leave now. So he was faced with this choice of, do I basically stay here and all of us die, or do I abandon my 17-year-old son? So that's a story that's kind of, I've known that story for as long as I can remember. And so as a child, whenever I was told that and just carrying it throughout my life, it's just knowing like kind of that's kind of the story behind my family. That's where we're from. I don't really know a lot about what happened on my father's side. I know that my grandfather on my father's side, he fought in World War II, also for the Soviet army, being in the Ukraine. But I don't know much beyond that when it comes to my dad. But so then what happened is my grandfather got a horse. He packed my grandmother, my mother, my 4-year-old mother, and his 2 other children, so the 3 kids. He got on a horse and they rode to the Russian border. They crossed the Russian border. They were taken in by the Soviet army. They took my grandfather. They gave him a gun. They told him turn around and kill Nazis, just by himself. Just go and do what you can. And he had no military experience, of course. Like, he wasn't in the army. And so my grandmother and my mother and her 2 other siblings, my aunt and uncle, they were put in a barn, and they lived basically for, I think it was, I should know the history, but maybe a 4-year period in the basement of a barn in a town where they had never seen Jewish people before. And my mother would recall the story. A lot of it, I think she remembered in between the ages of 4 and 8, and a lot of it her older sister told her about. But people from that town, the Russians from that town, this was Russia, right? They would come to the barn and look at them like they were zoo animals because they'd never seen Jews before. So that was kind of like, that was the story I grew up with in terms of like, how my family got started and everything. So that was really interesting to me. And just like on a side note, like politically, that's why when all of this shit is going on between like today, like modern day kind of Russia and Ukraine, it's a bit of a sore spot for me because first of all, Valeria's Russian, like she was born in Russia. And I have friends in Russia. Like I have friends who I've known for many, many years, and knowing that history, that it was because of Russia that I'm even here. Like as someone born in the Ukraine, I mean, my mother who was born in the Ukraine as a 4-year-old, had the Russians not, and then, afterwards, obviously like the Soviet army liberated the Jews in World War II, but had the Russians not taken my family in, my Jewish family in at the time where it was like highly anti-Semitic, both in Russia and in Ukraine during that time. If they hadn't have taken them in, then for sure my family would have been destroyed. Like my mother's whole side of the family would have been destroyed. I would have not have existed. And so that's, to me, it's like a sore point between like this whole conflict. And I get people DMing me quite often saying like, take a position. Like, what do you think? And I'm just like, it's complicated, guys. I really can't and won't take a position because I obviously have a lot of like empathy for both sides. Right. So anyways, that's kind of the story of my family's origin.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think that speaks to so many aspects of you. Number one, the fact that you said that there's something naturally within you that you operate out of survival, not strategy. I mean, I think even though you weren't literally born during that time, right? You existed, right? Because you existed inside your 4-year-old mother at that time. So who knows how that impacted your genetics or,
Sure. I mean, that's, no,
but even still,
that's a little woo, but yeah.
Well, one, it's science, right? You were an egg inside your mother at that time.
Hold on. Eggs exist in 4-year-old females?
You are born as a woman with all of the eggs you're ever going to have.
Really?
So you were in your grandmother's belly.
All right.
Yeah.
But I think that the kind of the trauma that you're talking about, I mean, look, we're talking about generational trauma that has carried through like
Ashkenazi Jews.
Ashkenazi Jews, especially from that era in that part of the world. But there's more to it than that because then my mother and my father growing up in post World War II Soviet Union, I can tell you that, a lot of, as much as like 6 million Jews died during the Holocaust, what people don't talk about, and again, I don't know if my numbers are correct. I'm not an expert in this era. However, to my understanding, about 20 million Soviets died, like not Jewish people. So I think not enough people talk about that. And so what happened was, in World War II, after this happened, there was a lot of animosity towards Jewish people when they actually came back. So when my mother's family came back to their home in Kiev, or however way that kind of played out, there was a lot of animosity, and then that carried on for many years to the point where like the anti-Semitism was so systemic that when my mother applied to university after high school, they sent her a formal letter saying we don't take Jews. Right, because it's in the documents. Like there's official documents that says Jew, even afterwards. So that anti-Semitism, it carried on, and so yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of trauma, from that as well.
For sure, but I feel like as an Ashkenazi Jew myself, even though I know that when you and I first met, that was something that you were very surprised by, that I could have similar family lineage to you, but still also be Latin. But that's a story for a different day.
I didn't know Latina Jews existed. So you shocked me. I'm in shock every time I see you. I'm like, really? Really?
But as an Ashkenazi Jew myself, I feel like I have similar stories. My aunts, my grandmother, I am told of similar survivorship, and I think that trickles down, of course, into today and your work ethic, your perception of reality, how you show up as a man, as an entrepreneur. And I think right now, the way that you conduct business, the way that you lead your life, your lived experience and your parents' and grandparents' lived experience, it all makes sense, right? So I love the fact that you are so open with your story, and you're open with the fact that it hasn't been all unicorns and roses, right? Quite the opposite.
Like not even close, yeah.
Quite the opposite, right? So I want to fast forward a little bit and actually get to a poignant moment that you were kind enough to share with me that, so at this point, you're already in Canada, you've gone to university, and you come back with your geology degree, right? And you come home and your dad just tells you straight up, get a job or get out.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like 1992, you said, right?
Yeah, that was about 92. I had graduated college, and yeah, my dad, so I graduated with my degree in geology because when I went to school, I wasn't like, nobody really told me, hey, like you got to go to business school, you got to do anything like that. I just knew that I wanted to go to university because all my friends were going to university. Furthermore, my father didn't think I'd go to university at all. He wanted me to go to college to be a plumber. That was his like big dream. You got to understand something, like coming from where my parents came to and going through the immigration that they did, it's not like when I immigrated from Toronto to Miami. Like I already came here with money, like I speak English. My parents had no money. They didn't speak English. They didn't know anybody. And so when you go through that kind of, first of all, when you live the trauma of like what Soviet Union was, especially as a Jew, for when they were growing up and post World War II, just to kind of go back to that. And then you come here, I'm growing up in a home that is a combination of, I'm being influenced by Western society in Canada of like, you're in the West and there's all these possibilities and all these opportunities from parents where to them success is survival. And so it's this, trying to reconcile that as a child growing up. It's like from one side, you're being told by society, you're going to school saying you have all these opportunities. If you go to school, you can have this amazing career, you can start a business. And, my parents, their goal is that like, I don't know, like I have enough money just to survive. And well, I mean, I guess we'll get to it, but even when I graduated university, and there's actually a funny story. I barely graduated university as well. I had to hustle to get that done too, because at the end of my fourth year of my 3-year degree, I had failed like 2 courses or 1 course. And I was friends with this girl who knew another girl who was the daughter of the dean of the geology school or the geology department, or what's it called? What's it called?
The geology department.
No, but like the group within the university. No, the department?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So she was friends with the dean, whatever. And so I said, give me a meeting with this guy. I need to talk to him. So I went and talked to him and I explained to him. I said, listen, I'm kind of in a bad spot because I took all these loans over the last 4 years. And if I don't graduate, then what's going to happen is like I can't come back for year 5. And I have no more money. I got to go out and start working. So if I don't do this, then, if I don't get this grade, there's going to be a problem. So whatever, I talked to him and he literally bumped up 1 grade for me to get my degree. So I have a degree. I have a Bachelor of Science. And I remember like a couple of years later, I got this job at a place called Future Shop, which is the equivalent of Best Buy. They're not around anymore. And I did that. And then after that, I worked for like doing like corporate sales, selling like laptops and stuff. And they gave me a laptop to use. To me, that was like getting a Rolls Royce, because the fact that somebody trusted me to give me a laptop, and I was fascinated because I hadn't touched the computer until after I graduated school. So like graduated college. So I was like 23. It was the first time I even looked at a computer. And so having this computer, and it's mobile, you can pick it up and you can move it, and it's still a computer when you move it from one place to another. It was incredible. And I took this computer and I went to go visit this dean of geology, and I just showed up. I went there and he's like, he didn't even recognize me. I'm like, you probably don't remember me because a few years had passed. And I said, I want you to know and I took out the laptop. I go, you see this? And it was like magic, And he goes, wow, it's a nice laptop. I go, because of you, I have this laptop, because this company hired me. If you didn't give me that grade, whatever it was 4 years earlier, if you hadn't given me that grade, to bump me up for me to graduate, nobody would have given me a job. I just wanted to know like what you helped me accomplish, because that laptop to me was like the ultimate symbol of success at the time. And I must have been maybe 25, 26. Yeah. So anyways. Yeah.
No, I mean, if not for nothing, I love the fact, one of the things I love about working with you is I can ask you a simple question and I get the most colorful story as a response. So all of the context really helps. But I want to really emphasize, because I think it's really important. You moved to Canada when you're 4 years old, right?
I arrived when I was 3.
Okay. You're still very much in a survivalist household, right? Yeah. Whether you're conscious of it or not, everything is about survival, as you said. So then you are hustling in school, you're doing what you can, and then you get to that point where you finally graduate and your dad says what he did. So I just feel like that is the point where almost like the Gary that we all know, like from public perception, like that's when he was born almost. So like what happened in that moment when your dad says, get a job or get out? Like what switched in your mind? How did that land on your ears?
Well, when that happened, I mean, I had graduated with my like illustrious Bachelor of Science in geology. And you know, my dad said to me, you got to get a job. He said, what are your plans? And I said, well, I'm going to hold out for a geology job. And it's not like I was looking. I was just kind of hanging out, right? I didn't really know what I was going to do, right? Then there's a whole stint. I went to Montreal and there was this girl and I lived with her for a bit. I didn't even tell you about that. That's a whole other story. But when he asked me what I was going to do, I said, I'm holding out for a geology job. Realistically, what I found out about after I got my degree, this is how misguided I was.
What is a geology job to you at that time?
Well, that's the problem. So the only reason I went to get a degree in geology is because I was undeclared for 2 years. I got I liked science, and one of the courses that I took was geology as an elective. So I'm like, well, that seems cool. Yeah. Nobody was telling me to go to business school or to become a lawyer or anything like that. And I didn't have that kind of influence in my life, right? It wasn't in the cards for me. So anyway, so I found out afterwards that a geology job means I have to live like in a field somewhere, like in a fucking igloo for 8 months. And I don't want to offend my wife, but like I was 25 years old and they were telling me like, you have to go live up there, and there was no girls up there. So it's like, I have to go live in like an igloo for like 8 to 10 months of the year with a bunch of like older dudes, like looking at rocks.
Not for you, not ideal.
So I said, I'm not going to do it. Yeah. So then my dad's like, why'd you get a geology degree? And I'm like, I don't know, because you didn't tell me to get a business degree. It would have been nice if you would have guided me, but you didn't, so whatever. The only guidance he gave me was like, go be a dentist, they make money. And I was like, all right, that wasn't appealing to me either. So anyway, so he said to me, okay, well, I don't care if you're holding out for a geology job, because I went to live back home, and this was after living 4 years on my own in college, where I was selling stuffed animals on street corners in the summer, and I was taking student loans, which that was a whole other science. I applied for every grant and bursary known to man. And it's funny because the kids who were like the kids of like the rich people, halfway through the semester, they were out of money, so they couldn't go partying anymore. And I was still out partying because I had done research to find out. I had like applied for every loan possible, like every loan that, I don't know, just like some obscure loan. A lot of them were grants. And so like I made a whole business out of applying for them. They were all legit. Like I didn't apply for anything that wasn't applicable to me, but I applied and I got a whole bunch of them. So, and between the loans and then I sold stuffed animals on street corners. So all the rich kids, they were running out of money, and I just kept hustling the system like legitimately for all these other, for these ways to get by. But just getting back to my dad, so he said, okay, like then I had to go back home, and he goes, okay, well now that you're back home, you either have to get a job or get out. So I knew this one kid, Vadim, and this kid, he goes to me, you should go and learn how to do sales. And I go, okay, because I had already sold stuffed animals, so that was kind of sales. And he goes, there's this company called Future Shop, which is like the equivalent of a Best Buy. And he goes, they have like this full like training program. So I said, okay, cool. So I went and I applied at this place, and they took me, and I had to go to the training program for 2 weeks, but it was on the other side of town, and it was like 2.5 hours away. When I say out of town, it was like out of town. And so it was, every morning I had to take, there's a lot of shit I didn't tell you. So I had to take a series of buses and trains and subways every morning to get there for 2.5 hours. Did a whole day of 8 hours of this sales training, which was imperative, by the way. It was great sales training. And then I had to go 2.5 hours back. So I did that for a few weeks. So then I worked there, and I made $1,500 Canadian a month, which is like $1,000 US a month equivalent today. Plus a little bit of commission, and that's it. And so when my dad told me that was kind of my first time the second time. The first time I had to figure shit out was to get my degree from that dean of geology. I still know the department. No, what is it?
The department head. I don't know, because I feel like in Canada you guys have different names for things. Like I want to say you think it's like a chancellor or something like that.
No, not the guy. The department. Like the what is it?
It's literally called a department.
No, it's not. It's the faculty. No, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, I forgot what it's called. It doesn't matter. I'll come to it and I'll tell you another time. But anyways, so it was with this dean of geology. And so now I needed a job within like days or I had to get out. And my dad wasn't playing. Like I knew I had to get out and I had nowhere to go. So then I kind of had tried to figure shit out again. That's where Vadim told me, go get the sales training from Future Shop. And then I took the bus 2.5 hours each way. And then I started getting this job. And then I remember I worked like 6 days a week. And one of those days was Saturday. And every Saturday morning I had to be there at 6:30 a.m. to start my day because that was the big sales day, right? And they got me selling computers. And that was the first time I ever even touched a computer in my whole life. Because all through university and college, I just did essays by hand. That was my era, you know? And so, yeah, and I remember they had this great sales training, and every Saturday at 6 a.m., I'd get there at 6:30 a.m. and they would do the sales training and we'd run around and do jumping jacks. And so that was the beginning of my career, yeah.
Well, to kind of circle back to what I'm sure you'll also consider woo-woo, it's interesting now, right? Hindsight is always 20/20, that what was most definitely a hard time and a hard decision and a hard moment that your dad kind of put you up against. Looking back, I'm sure that laid a foundation for the immense success you then saw afterwards, right? So
I don't know what this immense success is you're talking about, but okay.
Well, that's another thing. Like we will talk about that. The fact that you always say like you are not a successful person, like we'll unpack that later. But I will say, and just take the compliment, like on paper, and not only on paper, but as someone who has had the privilege of getting to know you, I definitely consider you extremely successful, and success can be measured in many different ways. But don't derail my conversation.
I won't derail it, but my success is really my like incredible wife. I won like the wife like lottery and the jackpot. My 3 incredible kids. The fact that like we're all healthy and we live in Miami. So to me, like, yes, I am from that perspective. But when you look at the traditional markers and the way success is basically shoved down our throats on social media, I don't know that, like, I'm not driving Lamborghinis and flying in private jets.
The person that measures success by that metric,
fair. Yeah. No, but I mean, those are still legitimate human beings. Fair. It's just we can have differences of opinions when it comes to success.
No, yeah, and noted. But you glossed over the selling stuffed animals on street corners bit, and I think that's actually a really formidable chapter in your life. But before I want you to tell me a little bit more about that, I want to ask you something, because one of the themes that I see is really prevalent in all of the different lanes of your life is this idea of what it means to be a man, right? And so it's interesting that you said that you didn't have your dad guiding you. You didn't have anyone telling you what to do or how to do it. Yeah. And so who did you have? Nobody? And you just like decided what it meant to be a man from a very early stage all on your own?
I think it just came to me. And just for the record, like my dad was just busy trying to kind of keep us going, right? Yep. So that was really kind of the situation with my dad. It's not that he for lack of trying. I mean, he kind of threw some lessons at me here and there, but I don't know, Ariel. It's a good question. I don't know. It just feels like it's just like this natural, innate thing. Like a man should not behave and do what a man should do. A man should be a provider. A man should be a good example. He should take care of the people that he loves and cares about. It's kind of, it just seems obvious to me.
Okay. But also, and I mean, I have your permission to get a little personal. Is it fair to say that, because your dad was essentially just trying to keep a roof over all of your heads, you saw how he wasn't showing up for your mom, or he wasn't showing up as a man? Did that also help you understand what you needed to do and the steps you needed to take to do what he wasn't doing, or to be kind of not like him?
I just think that I understand you and most people are very analytical. You just have to, I guess what I'm trying to explain is that my life just took a natural course. Okay. I can't tell you like I sat and I brooded over this is how I'm going to be because of this, therefore I will do this. Yeah. I just kind of lived and did things as they came and did what I felt was logical. So for example, before I met Valeria, I had a girlfriend or two. And there was never like, let's split the bill. There was never a notion of, it was always like you open the car door, you do this, you do that. And if you don't have a car and if you don't have money to go on a date, you just don't go on a date. It doesn't mean, I remember Valeria and I were on a podcast and she was saying, well, why not? You can just go for a walk in the park. And I made a statement on that podcast and I got a lot of shit for it, saying, not from Valeria, from the audience, basically saying, if you don't have a car and you can't afford to take a girl out on a date and you're going for a walk in the park, you shouldn't be on that date. You got things to do. You got some work to do. You better go and make some fucking money, because if you can't do that. So to me, I always understood, and I don't even know how, that a man has to take care of finances. Okay. A man has to protect. And those are kind of like the big things that men have to do. And a man has to teach and mentor, whether it's his wife and especially his kids.
So even though your dad wasn't doing that for you, you just knew that's what a man was?
I can't say that he wasn't. I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember. Maybe he was. Okay. Maybe he tried. I think I was just a difficult guy and I wanted to figure shit out on my own.
Okay.
So maybe he tried. I just don't remember, because he was always anxious. He was trying really hard. It's not an easy thing. You got to understand, like, you're 35 years old. You leave the only country you've ever known after you've been oppressed to shit your whole life, being told you can't have shit. And not only because we're Jewish, but the whole country was like that. Everybody had that problem because it was so oppressive. And then, all is survival. And then you come to a place where you don't speak English, you have no money, you have no contacts, and you start from zero at the age of 35. You're almost 35. Can you imagine if you had to move to the middle of nowhere and you didn't know, and you didn't speak the language and you had no transferable skills? So I'm not sitting here vilifying my dad, and I don't want that to be about this. It's just that I get it.
Yeah.
I went through several heart attacks. I'm even moving from Toronto to Miami, and we have money and we speak English, and it was difficult with immigration, with all this shit. So I don't really blame him for it. So yeah, but I mean, getting back on the topic of masculinity, look, I've been attacked a lot in Valeria's content. Like when I'm on Valeria's podcast, at first it would really bother me because I'm just being me, and now it bothers me a lot less. I mean, I haven't been on one of her podcasts in a while, but I'm sure I'll make it back soon.
No, but one of the things you said about what it means to be a man is just like doing what you have to do. I think perfectly guides us back to the question I wanted to ask you, which was to tell us more about the whole stuffed animals in the corner thing. Because while that seems small, you were kind enough to share this story with me as we were on this 44 in total hour-long road trip, right? That's a whole other story. 22 hours there, 22 hours back. Yeah. And if we get to it, we get to it. But on like one of the final hours of our way there, we're both delirious. And you start to tell me about these stuffed animals on the corner. And
I didn't tell you before? You didn't know about the stuffed animals before?
No, you really got into it then. And what I took from that story was that you really have no ego. You sincerely just do what you need to do. Like, you saw an opportunity, you seized it. And I want you to understand that that is something that, as someone who can observe the way that you work, right? I really, really appreciate that part of working with you means that you're just able to see a situation so clearly, and you don't approach situations with any kind of pride. And that's why I think you're just able to iterate so quickly and achieve, again, this word success that I'm just going to push on you because I do believe that you deserve it. So I think you there standing on the corner selling stuffed animals, and the way that you would tell me, like, I knew this one was going to buy this one. I knew I could use this girlfriend's, to do that. Like, tell me a little bit more about that, because not everyone knows that.
Yeah, so what happened was I knew this guy, and this guy. This
is not Vadim. This is someone else.
No, that kid's name was Israel.
Okay.
And that kid, I wasn't really friends with him. I was friends with another guy that knew him. Mm-hmm. And so what this guy Israel would do, he would figure out how to win the toys at the local fair. Like, so we had this place called Canada's Wonderland in Canada, which I think it might still be around. And you can go, like you pay like $5, you get like 3 balls, you throw them at some bowling pins or something like that, or like a little fishing game or some bullshit like that. And he got really good at winning these animals. Mm-hmm. So then he would stand outside of the park, and he would sell them to the people who couldn't figure out how to win them. Right. So that was an interesting, but he just couldn't get a lot of volume going that way. Mm-hmm. So this other guy that I knew, he started buying them, and he went to the manufacturer, started buying them, and he started laying them out on street corners and selling them. So when I saw that, I need to figure out where you got them from. So I went to the fair, and I spent, I don't know how much money I spent, and I finally won one So then I could look at the label. This isn't like, there was no ChatGPT back then, right? So I had to look at the label and I saw the name of the place. And so I went there and I said, hey, can you guys sell me some stuffed animals? And so I borrowed money to buy like an $800 van. And I bought this van and I went and I bought these and I bought money to buy these stuffed animals. I borrowed money to buy these stuffed animals and I bought these stuffed animals. And I knew already there was like one or two guys that I know that were buddies of mine that were doing it in Toronto. And so I had this lease for my place in London, Ontario, because I was going to school there and it was a 12-month lease. But for 3 months of the year, it was summer, but I was still on a 12-month lease. So I had to pay. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm paying there anyways. So I'm just going to stay in London and I'm going to be the king of the stuffed animals in London. So I had these stuffed animals and I would lay them out on the street corners. But this wasn't like, when you think of this, it's not like I had like this little like a booth, like a hot dog.
I love the way that you describe this. Go ahead.
A hot dog stand sized booth. No, I had like a field like the size of this room, and it was covered with animals. It was covered, and I had them all like laid out. And I
did it strategically. You said you would make families.
I made families, yeah. So it was like this. I had these one called the Big Hairy. That's what I kind of called them internally. And I merchandised them. So I had two Big Harrys, like they were like this tall off the ground. They were like really tall. And I'd sit them beside each other. And that was kind of the mom and dad. And then I had like multiple sizes and I made a whole display. And then I had dogs and I had bears and I had all kinds of stuff, right? And they would range in like my retail price, which was like anywhere starting from like $5, which would cost me $1, to the Big Harrys where I charged $90 for those. And those cost me $45. So I had the smallest margin on those, but you sell a Big Harry and you make $45, right? And so, yeah, I would do that. And then eventually it got to the point where I started making so much money that when I loaded my van, there was no more air left in my van. Like I loaded these animals and each one was in their own plastic bag. And I loaded the van so thick that there was just no more air in the van. It was just like the 2 seats in the front, and even the front seat was full. Yeah. And it was just me. And I had to go. The supplier was in Toronto. And so that was 2 hours away from London. So I would drive 2 hours, like twice a week. I would make that trip to get more stock because I would sell out of the van.
And you just understood how to do all of these different steps and how to make this successful.
I don't know. You buy this for $1, you sell it over here for $2. It's not that complex. And that's what I would do. And so what I learned there is, first of all, I learned merchandising, right? Yeah. The problem was the wind kept blowing. And so some of the animals that would stand up, well, you're laughing, but it's true. Some of the animals that would stand up, they would keep falling down. And as much as I tried to like MacGyver, like a setup so they wouldn't fall down, there were some like the unicorns, they were just tall and they were sitting on 4 legs and I couldn't prop them up. There was nothing I could do. And even the Big Harrys, they were balls. They were essentially balls with arms. And so the wind would blow, they'd start rolling. Yeah. One of the big arms would stop it from continuing to roll, but then it was still like, and then there was an issue with the dirt too, because they would fall and they would fall into a dirty thing. So then I had like a brush and I had to brush. So I'm standing on the street corner brushing the animals and stuff. And so I set it all up. And then people would come and, to get the real estate to do it, what would happen is I'd get there and I would do it like at gas stations where obviously the owner of an oil company is not standing there and asking me to like pay rent. So I went to the dude, like the minimum wage dude working at the gas station, and I would say, hey, like I want to set up here. And he goes, no, you can't set up here. I'm like, you got any kids? And he's like, yeah. Like, what do you got? Girls, boys? He goes, I will girl. I go, how old is she? He's like 9. I'm like, hold on a second. I'd come back and I'd bring out like a little pink teddy bear and I'd said, well, I'm going to give you this is for your daughter. Right. Whether you let me stay or not, but you want to let me stay? And he's like, all right, you can stay. And that's it. And I would set up and I would just keep going until somebody from corporate figured out what I was doing, and they'd come and they'd say, hey, get out of here. And then one day in London, I had the cops show up and they said, hey, do you have a license? I said, of course I have a license. And he goes, okay, give me your license. So I gave him my driver's license. He goes, no, not your driver's license. Give me your business license. Right. I'm like, okay. I go, where do I get that? And he goes, you got to go to City Hall to get that. I said, okay, cool. So he made me pack up. And so I packed up and I went to City Hall. And I don't know how I did this. It was so long ago. I didn't actually have a business. It's not like I had a corporation. I was buying this shit for cash, right? I don't know how, but I got a business permit for this. I have no clue how I did it. So they gave me a business permit. And then the next time the cops came, because that was always the thing, is I was always either running away from the corporate gas guys who would come and tell me, you can't, this is private property, you got to get out of here, or the landlords who owned the strip malls that I was doing it at, or I had the city coming and saying, hey, what are you doing? You can't be here. Yeah. And so,
well, the way you're telling this story reminds me of something that you said when we first started working together, that everyone likes to call themselves an entrepreneur, but really a real entrepreneur is the one that's willing to risk it all and is the one that is, at the end of the day, like has all of the risk, all of the
of course,
intention to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, but I don't even know if you can actually call me an entrepreneur, because
why not?
I'll tell you why. Because entrepreneurs, especially today, the way that entrepreneurs are so glamorized, right? Glamorized, is that a word?
Yeah.
Right. So people become entrepreneurs because they're passionate about being entrepreneurs. People become entrepreneurs because they're skilled at it. People become entrepreneurs because they may come from means that allow them to be losing money for a certain period of time, sometimes years, where they don't have to worry about kind of being in the streets, right? Or they have investors who are parents or family members who can help them out. And I know a lot of those people, and I don't take anything away from those people too. But for me, I became an entrepreneur
out of necessity.
Well, yeah, because I was unemployable.
Right.
I kept getting fired everywhere I went to go work. And so that's the issue, right? So I'm not like one of these glamorous entrepreneurs that you see today, like that are on social media and talking about how amazing this is. I'm a guy who I had no choice but to sell stuffed animals. Furthermore, after I did this for 4 years straight, for 4 summers straight in college, and around between 1996 and 1999, when I actually worked for people, and I got fired there too. But when I actually was working, I would work 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, in a corporate job, and make my $30,000 a year. And then Saturdays and Sundays, I would go back to selling stuffed animals, already like as an adult in my late 20s.
But to me, that speaks to the real essence of a real entrepreneur, meaning you had no formal training, you had no one giving you guidance. So like you already said, this came out of some like deep knowing within you, which makes it natural, and clearly you were good at it. So to me, that is an entrepreneur, and you were willing to consistently risk it all.
I wasn't willing. I had no choice. I'm going to give you another example.
I'm going to give you literal.
I'm going to, well, that I don't know. Yes, reality is something that I believe in. Yeah. So look, I'm going to give you an example. So we're going to get to the whole $32 million thing, I'm sure. But and when I had that company, and I was a CEO of that company, and I had 400 employees, and there were millions of dollars going through my hands and all this, and it was like this whole thing. And after that, after kind of that, kind of abruptly came to an end, I had another business, which we can or cannot talk about. I had multiple businesses. And then when Valeria started creating content in 2017, which I'm sure we're going to get to, I was the first employee. Well, obviously Valeria, she spearheaded the whole thing, and then I joined. And going from being the CEO of a 400-person company with like an 8-person C-suite and $400,000 or $500,000 a year, like C-level executives reporting into me. After that, I was an accountant, making invoice for Valeria's creator business, right, for her personal brand. Making invoice. This was 4 years later.
But again,
making invoices and chasing like advertisers who make yogurt to tell them, hey, you guys owe us $200.
But amazing. That speaks to the fact, again, that you have no ego when it comes to it. And then you're just able to MacGyver and pivot, and you just go where things move you, and you build what you can.
Yeah, I just do what it takes. I do what it takes.
Yeah, I love that. I love you said that when you told me, when someone asks you, what do you do? And you just say, whatever it takes.
Yeah, what do? You do whatever it takes.
Yeah,
but that's what a man does. A man does whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And by the way, any man in any kind of a situation, if he's faced with something that is an existential threat to himself or his family or the people he loves, a man will do whatever it takes.
Yeah. I agree.
But all of them, all of them, like across the board. Like, I don't believe that there's a man out there who has like a wife and children,
right,
they get into dire straits, that he's not going to step up. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it happens that guys kind of flake out, but not the ones that I know.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But so then tell me, okay, so then now you essentially have reached some level of financial freedom doing this, right? Relatively speaking, doing the stuffed animals.
The stuffed animals?
But now,
I wouldn't call it financial freedom. But
but you are making good money. You're working for yourself, right?
Yeah, I was driving a Volkswagen Jetta, but I was working 7 days a week.
Okay, all right. But so then how do you go from that to then starting to work for someone else, which then ultimately leads you to this kind of tech pivot, we'll call it, and building out MenuPalace?
Yeah, so I was working during the day, during the week, Monday to Friday. I was working for. I'll try to make it brief. But when I first got, we're not even talking about working at McDonald's when I was 15 years old.
Right.
And they eventually ended up demoting me. I started off at the Cash, which was like the most prestigious, because I guess I presented well in the interview, and then they kept demoting me. It went from there to the Big Macs to the chicken nuggets. Then they had me cleaning the floors, and then they just fired me because they realized I was useless. But I remember not being too upset about it. But getting back to this, I mean, I've had an illustrious career doing a whole bunch of different shit. So when I graduated school and my dad told me, you got to get a job, I don't care what it is, or you got to get out, I went and I worked at this Future Shop place, which was the equivalent of Best Buy. So I worked there for about a year and a half. And then I saw how they were making all their money. While I was doing that, while I was selling stuffed animals. I sold stuffed animals 2 days a week while I was working 5 days a week doing retail.
Okay.
Then what happened is I saw how they were making all their money. They were making all their money on extended warranties on computer equipment. So I'm sure even now, if you buy, I don't know who buys stuff retail anymore. People buy it on Amazon and stuff. But back then, if I sold a computer, and back then the prices were crazy. A laptop was like $4,000. I'm telling you, it was like buying a Rolls Royce back then. So I would sell a laptop for $4,000. My commission would be $50 because the profit margins are really low on them. But if I sold an extended warranty for $300, it was like $180. So they were paying me $180 on a $300 extended warranty. So I was like, there's obviously a lot of margin in this, and this is like there's money to be made here. So then I had this other buddy, this guy Ellie Goldwasser. Ellie, what's up? Hope you're well. haven't talked to Ellie in a while. So Ellie Goldwasser had this sister, and this sister had this this company that sold computers in high volume to to corporate accounts, like large insurance companies and whatnot. So through Ellie, he introduced me to his sister, and then I told his sister, look, at Future Shop, this is how they're making their money. And I explained to her this commission breakdown between selling the hardware and selling the extended warranty. And I said to her, I don't know why I said it. I said, why don't I just come in and are you doing this? Are you selling extended warranty? She said, no. I go, listen, the margins here are great. Why don't I come in and set this whole thing up for you? She's like, all right. So she paid me a salary. She put me on a bonus plan to set this whole thing up. And I found this company who would underwrite the whole thing so I could resell someone else's insurance. And I set that up. And so that's how I got into that job. And I got fired from there because I couldn't pull it off. Again, I came with my bachelor's degree in geology. I didn't actually have any business acumen to actually set anything up. But I had kind of I saw the vision that I understood how this could be applicable to, like, if they're doing it in retail, they can do it in corporate sales too. And so from there, at that time, my buddy Mayor Glusberg, who lives in Israel now, so shout out to Mayor. Mayor was working at this company called Edge Interactive Publishing, which is this, it was a company back then that was doing online. It was like an online meant something completely different back then. This was like in the days of Yahoo. Google hadn't even started yet. And so Mayor was working at this company for this guy, Chris Wilkins. And Chris's company was called Edge Interactive Publishing. And it was an online directory for post-secondary schools in Canada. So however many thousands of schools in Canada, including like plumber schools and like, carpenter schools.
Vocational schools, yeah.
Up to like universities and colleges, right? He would sell, they were buying basically ads and profiles on this website. And then this website was getting traffic. I don't know how the hell Chris was buying traffic at the time. There was no traffic to buy. Yahoo had just really started. There was a bidding platform called Overture. And Overture was this layer of technology that went into Yahoo that allowed people to do real-time bidding on positioning on keywords, right? Anyways, so Mayor, when he spotted me, and him and I were boys from before, and he was like, why don't you come and do maybe sales after I got canned from Ellie Goldwasser's sister's company. Mayor said to me, why don't you come and do sales for this Edge Interactive Publishing? Let me introduce you to Chris. So I went to Chris, I presented well, and then I got a job there. And so there I was making like 30 grand a year, right? Canadian.
Right.
All right.
And still maintaining some members of your family at the same time, right? So that 30.
What do you mean maintaining members of my family?
Well, didn't you have to cover some aspects of your mom as well, or not yet?
No, my parents had split up. My mom was in dire straits financially. She was just kind of hanging on, and she was on welfare, right? So she was on welfare for several years, and I saw that. That was really a painful thing for me to see. And I eventually, I don't know if I got fired from there. No, I quit from that job. But eventually, so I'll get back to what happened with my mom. I wasn't carrying her quite yet, but it was really painful for me that she was, she was on welfare. And so I was living in this buddy of mine, this guy Shai. I was living in his house. So he was like, he came from like good means and stuff. So he had bought himself a house. So I rented a room in his house, and it was like, he was like 25 years old or something. They were 25, 26. And he was able to buy a house, which was like a huge deal. And so I rented a room in his house. And so I was living there at the time and working for this Edge Interactive Publishing. And at some point, my university roommate, Mike, he came to me and he said, hey, do you want to start this company? And I was like, what is it? And he goes, well, I registered a domain like MenuPalace.com. And I said, okay, what's it about? He said, we're going to put restaurant menus on the internet. And I said, okay, that sounds cool. And I said, well, so I remember the meeting. We met in a donut shop, And he explained it to me, and I looked at it, and because I had been working at this Edge Interactive Publishing, this place that had this directory for colleges and universities, and there were probably like 1/10 of the amount of colleges and universities in all of Canada, which required a lot of expense to travel to go see them, as compared to like there's probably triple the amount of restaurants in Toronto alone. So my logic at the time was like, okay, Mike, look, like this is how this guy is doing. Like my employer is doing the rest of the college and university directory, and he's got this like really small pool of potential buyers across all of Canada. Whereas in Toronto, there's triple the amount of restaurants and there's no expense. Like I can physically go into 3 or 4 restaurants a day and pitch directory services. Like we can put them on the directory. So Mike said to me, he said, okay, well, he was doing it part-time because Mike actually, who was my college roommate, he got his MBA and he was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Wow.
You know PwC, they have it here too. Yeah. So he was good, he was doing well, and he was working at PwC. He goes like, I'm going to do it part-time, and I'm going to actually like administrate the site part-time, and you stay at your $30,000, job, and then you do sales part-time. And I said, no, I'm just going to quit my job. And I had no money. And he said, what do you mean you're going to quit your job? Like, how are you going to survive? I said, I don't know. Like, I can always get another shitty job. Like, let's take a shot,
That's that entrepreneurial mindset, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
My dad said to me, he goes, you're crazy.
Right.
And I said, why? He goes, you're making $30,000 a year. He goes, like, what are you going to do? What if you can't sell? I said, what if I can? He goes, what if you can't sell enough? I go, I don't know. Like, I'll hustle these directory sales. So with MenuPalace, my first sale ever I made was for $59. After GST, which is like the sales tax, it was $63.13. And when I made that sale, it was a pizza by the slice place. That was my first directory sale for MenuPalace. You should have seen the website. It was a joke. It looked like the dot pixel stuff,
Yeah.
And that guy just liked me. He didn't know what an internet was. It was like, And so what I did was I went to all of his neighbors, these other tiny little restaurants, and I said, hey, that guy, he just invested. Because I used the word invested instead of bought. I said that guy just invested, and he purchased a listing in this like new restaurant directory. It's like, it's on the internet, and people are like, internet, yeah. And so based on that kind of proximity, I don't know, I call it maybe proximity marketing, where I had that one guy and I went to all of his neighbors, and then this guy bought for $59. This guy got him to the deluxe package for $200, and so we built that business out with me, primarily me doing sales the whole time. In a few years, we were doing like $3 or $4 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
Yeah. And so at that point, like I thought I made it, in the sense that, because I didn't understand that there was more money than that.
Right.
Nobody told me that there was more money. Like as soon as like the letter M started appearing anywhere close to the vicinity of me, I was like, that's it.
And then what did your dad tell you at that point? Like now you're making way more than $30K.
Yeah, I was making a lot more than he was making too. What my dad said, my dad offered to come in and take over. He said, you've done a good job up until now. Like, I have a lot more experience.
Wow.
I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't know anything about this. So I told my dad, don't worry about it. I'm going to keep doing my thing. And then, so I did that. And then at that point, so when I was doing that, I rented my mom a place. So I was renting. When I started that business, I was living in a basement apartment in, I don't even want to recall. It was just funny. I was just living in a funny basement apartment. Let's put it that way. I was living in a basement apartment that my mom had to come with me to meet the landlords because it was somebody's house, right? And it was in this like Hasidic neighborhood. And so I had like a Hasidic Jewish family living upstairs. And then my mom would come and she came because I knew I needed her for these people to agree to rent this place to me because like, I don't know, I'm coming by myself. I'm a kid. Like they don't know me. I'm not Hasidic, I'm not overly religious, and they're looking at me. And you
needed to vouch for your character.
So I needed them to see that I have a mother and I'm a good kid, So I brought my mother over, and she's a sweet, she was a sweet lady. And I brought her over, and she's, my son this, my son that. And so they let me move in. So I kind of leveraged my mom to be able to get this apartment. And and so then I moved in there. And so I was renting that apartment. My mom was still on welfare. But then eventually I started, it started picking up, and I started making a few $1 million a year. We got an office. I bought a nice car. I thought I made it,
Right.
I rented my mom a place.
Did she ever, I don't know if I've ever asked you this, but while she was on welfare and you were now doing well for yourself, was there any friction between you guys? Like, did she ever ask you for anything? Was she ever resentful? Like, how was that?
No, she didn't ask me for anything. I just couldn't bear to see her living the way she was.
So you just were putting your head down knowing that, like, just give me some time because I'm going to come back for you, kind of.
It wasn't back for you. It was, I lived in a shitty basement apartment. Okay. She was on welfare. I rented a place above ground. She rented I got her a place too.
You guys were coming up together.
When you say we were coming up together, she stopped getting welfare.
Right.
And I started paying for everything simultaneously. So simultaneously as to when I was progressing. So if I had $1,500 a month to spend on rent, I would spend whatever, $800 on me, $700 on her. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to live with her because I was already a grown man. Right. And so that's kind of how it was going. So to me, my biggest motivation at that time was like, I wanted her to be okay. Like I wanted myself to be okay too, but I wanted her to be okay as well. Like mm-hmm. I didn't want her. I couldn't live with me having a more excessive lifestyle than her, like me having a higher
But she
level.
never asked you for anything.
She never asked me for anything.
Wow.
She was happy to stay on welfare.
Wow.
I actually caught her. She was on her way to she had already signed up for like this terrible place to live, this like basically the projects. Mm-hmm. And she was about to go move there.
Wow.
And that was kind of the last straw for me. And I remember pushing through those last few months to be able to like get the deposits for her rent. And I really pushed through and I put her in a place and I'm like, okay, you sit here, like sit tight. She wasn't working. She was already like, you know.
Mm-hmm. So now you've already made a couple $1 million with MenuPalace. And so then
what
happened?
I was making money every month.
Okay.
It's not like I didn't have like squirreled away millions of dollars.
Of course,
you know what I mean? When I say we were doing that in revenue, but that was revenue. Like I had costs. Right. I had a 20-person team. I had expenses. We were marketing. Like there was a lot that was going on.
Right.
And then eventually when I still had MenuPalace, I was actually able to, so I bought my first condo. That thing appreciated. Mm-hmm. And then I leveled up. I got some more, I saved more money from doing MenuPalace. You got to understand, like doing MenuPalace, I was still hustling and trying to renew $200 a month marketing contracts with local restaurants.
And also teaching yourself so much, I could imagine, right? Because even though you had applicable skills based on the jobs you kind of landed in, I would imagine that now you have to learn so many other things like accounting and taking care of teams and all of that is just like, how are you doing that?
I don't know. I just did it. I don't know. I don't know. I remember there was like this CRM program. It wasn't fancy like it is now, so it was easier to learn. It was all in these things called CDs.
Yeah.
And so there were these like CD-ROMs. Yeah. So I bought a piece of software and I think I bought it for $50 at the time. It was called Act by a company called Semantic, which they're probably not around anymore.
Okay.
That one disc powered my entire CRM for a decade. Wow. I never upgraded it. I had thousands of my client contacts in there and I just ran it. I made custom fields in it. And then I would take that CD and then we had networking. So I figured out how to network all the computers together for my employees who came and they had their laptops and they had their blue Ethernet cable and I had to get an adapter for the Ethernet cable. Yes. So I did all that shit too. Yeah. Wow. And so look, I'm just self-taught. Up until this moment right now, I never considered it self-taught. I just considered it.
But that's when, and again, to give a little insight into the day-to-day kind of shop talk that you and I share, you repeatedly say that you're not a smart guy. But then when I
kind of say it also a little joking. I don't think I'm an idiot.
No.
I'm not, you know what, when I say it to you specifically, it's in contrast to like how like incredibly highly educated you are and how much respect I have. So I say it almost like, I say it jokingly, right? To be like, you went to a school, like if you would have told me like, at any point in time when I was growing up, and I knew about your school, you went to Columbia, your sister went to Harvard. Those names are like telling me you went to a school on Mars. Like that wasn't anywhere close to any kind of reality that not only I knew, that anybody I knew. You're probably the first person I know that went to an Ivy League school.
Right.
So you know what I mean? So when I tell you that, it's not self-deprecating.
I get that you're being like a little facetious, right?
Yeah, I don't think I'm an idiot. I just think like when I look at your level of education compared to mine, you're in a different stratosphere.
I guess, but then when I hear you say this and the fact that you taught yourself all aspects of this business and you scaled it and it was doing well and you were able to, for me, a real measure of success was being able to bring your mom up, to purchase property. Like that to me is intelligence that is far superior and carries much more weight than, quite frankly, and while I'm grateful for my, academic background, like at the end of the day, it's just a very expensive piece of paper, right? Like you actually learned so much.
I used to believe that.
No, that's a different
before
conversation.
I met you.
I guess that's a different conversation.
Fair. Okay. It's a different conversation.
Okay.
So I'm in MenuPalace. We started doing well. I was able to buy my first condo for 192,000 Canadian dollars. That went up in value. I added some more money. I bought a house. With that house, I was still renting a place for my mom. That house went up. I got a second mortgage on the house. I bought my mom a condo. And now my mom was living 10 minutes away from me. And I was every day scared shitless. How the hell am I going to afford this nut every month? Like, how am I not being like the monthly expenses? Because now I'm carrying 2 mortgages.
Right.
You know, I'm paying for all of my mom's expenses. Like, you know, my mom, God bless her soul, when her dentures she needed new dentures. It's like, hey, I need new dentures. Like, all right, here's the new dentures.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so my mom and I, we had this really close relationship where she took care of me in a household that was always under this like strain and pressure, you know, just from like my dad's uncertainty in terms of our finances. I felt danger there, but I felt safety with my mom because her and I were really, really close, you know, really, really close. And so
now you could be that safety for her.
It wasn't an option. It wasn't, there was no world that I would have considered like living in where I lived in a house and my mom lived in government subsidized housing. Of
course.
It didn't exist for me. One thing I will say, not to like, I didn't know anybody else who had this. So even in my kind of cohort of friends who were in similar situations, their folks figured it out. Like the apartment complex that I grew up in, we were there like all the way through. Whereas after a couple of years, when people first came to Toronto, because I lived in Calgary first, and then when I was 11 years old, we moved to Toronto, most of the families figured it out and left. They were able to buy a house in Thornhill, which was like the suburb of where I lived in this, like not in the city, but like they lived a little further north, which was like the fancy part of town. And so they figured it out. My dad, for whatever reason, he didn't. Okay. You know what I mean? And so my friends didn't have this thing where as they were creating their businesses, they also had to take care of their mom.
Right.
They didn't have that. So I had that.
But where are those friends now?
They're good. I don't know. They're doing all right.
I mean, like my question there was kind of,
I don't refer to those to my friends as like, it's not a negative. Like I never felt any ambiguity. Like,
but do you think having that unideal situation, actually ended up being a driver to ultimately, again, I'll use the word like the success you achieved because you knew you had to show up for not only yourself, but your mom?
I just think that anybody whose back's against the wall, they have a higher likelihood of success.
Okay.
I know people from that cohort who also had difficult, situations. I know a couple of people in particular who they ran into some problems and they're the most successful people I know.
Okay.
The kind of problems that would break most people, they wouldn't come back from. And so for me, I was like, kind of, if you look at the entire cohort, I was like, let's say, if you look at it like you like a scale from 0 to 100, I was like 7 or 8. And then everybody above me was doing much better. They didn't have this kind of weight on their shoulders. But below me, that 7 and below, do you know what I'm talking about? From 7 to 0, there were guys who had much more difficult situations. There was very few of them. There was very few of us. But those guys in that more difficult situation compared to the guys above. But again, we all started from the same place. We all came from that same immigrant cohort, from the same place, from the Soviet Union and all of that. The guys who are below me, they're all multiple times more successful than I am today.
Wow.
And so to me, these hardships, they breed success. And by the way, not one of those guys, all of those guys. So to me, I see a direct relation with hardship to success later. So the harder, again, from my observation, the harder an early life is for people. And I got to be I'm not trying to be sexist here, but this is only an analysis for the men that I've known. Because quite frankly, the women that I knew, they married. And they didn't do nothing. Right. They married and they did whatever they did. They either were working in the business alongside their husbands, or they had some side business. Yeah,
but I also agree that trauma manifests differently. Like the same traumatic experience can manifest differently in men versus women. But again, that's a different conversation. Sure. But so that actually speaks to something that you have told me before, which is that you don't want to kind of dissolve your scars, for lack of a better term, where like you are I don't know if I can use the word proud of the hardship that you went through. Like, how would you describe that? Because
yeah, I don't think it's a question of like I'm proud of, like I carry this stuff. Like I carry a lot of the stuff from my early life. I don't think it's a question of pride. I think it's just a question of like, I am who I am.
Okay.
And so when I hear about people saying, you got to do the work, and I don't know, there are a lot of people doing ayahuasca and doing all this stuff, and they see therapists and stuff like that. I guess that there's probably some value to that.
Yeah.
But I like who I am. I like who I am. I like how I do things.
Right.
I like my view of the world. I'm liking more and more who I'm becoming, even at my age, because I see the impact that I'm creating. I see the impact that I create for my wife.
Right.
For our kids,
right,
for the people around me, for not the like plug creator method, but like that, the last almost 2 years of creator method have really opened my eyes to the impact that I'm able to create. So to me, I don't want to get rid of this, because whatever trauma I'm carrying, starting all the way back in like the 1940s, before I was even born, to this day, I'm good with it. Like it is what it is. And whatever negative there is about it, it's very small compared to the positives. So I just don't want to like lobotomize myself.
Right. And that's where you and I have a differing opinion on what it means to do the work. And does that impact you in the sense that, does it absolve you of all of that and dissolve all of that trauma to the point that you don't remember it? No, but it's just the way that it literally lives inside of your body. But it sounds like you've done your own version of it and you're cool with who you are, and you see the benefit
men look a little more handsome when they have scars.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so you mentioned creator method. We haven't even gotten to that chapter of your life yet, because up until this point you have so much to share. But so take me really quickly, because you very famously touch on this $32 million raise that you did with venture capital. So you have MenuPalace. How do we pivot to that $32 million raise?
So during MenuPalace, I got really complacent. And to me, I don't have any regrets in life, but that's one thing I wish I would have known better. Like, because, financially where I came from, once I started making the kind of money I was making with MenuPalace over the course of about a decade, to me, I was just like, this is it. Like, everything is fine now. And as long as I can I didn't think about enterprise value and exits or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like the notion of the type of money that people talk about today, exiting for tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, revenues in the hundreds of millions. Like these numbers didn't come across my field of view at the time. And so to me, I thought, that's good. I made it. But what happened was I started feeling like there's got to be something more out there.
Okay.
I also started seeing like there was a company, they're still around, called OpenTable, this online reservation system. And I remember taking a shot at kind of doing that, kind of pivoting MenuPalace, which was an online restaurant directory primarily for the city of Toronto. So it's not as if I was even like North American with it. And I said, okay, I need to make a reservation system that competes with OpenTable before they come to Canada. And so I invested in that, but I didn't have that was already over my head technically to be able to do that. So I wasn't able to do that. It didn't we tried and we couldn't really make it work. And so I realized this whole thing with MenuPalace, this point and click basic, online restaurant directory, that we were kind of doing this arbitrage from buying keywords, and then Google came along. And then we were buying Google keywords. We were funneling it all into the restaurant directory. And then from there, we were kind of disseminating traffic into different categories of restaurants, cuisines, geographies, and all that. And then we were charging the restaurants for it. So it was actually a very logical business. It was a meaningful value proposition to the restaurant owners. But then I saw all this tech coming in, right? And this was before mobile too, right?
And what year was this, more or less?
This was late 2000s,
Okay.
6, 7, 8.
All right.
And so I started seeing this, and around 2009, 10, Groupon came across my desk.
Okay.
Right. And so with Groupon, what was really interesting with them was that they were public about their revenues on a daily basis. So because you probably don't remember, but they had these sales pages where they would say they would sell a coupon for a $20 coupon, and then they would have a counter, and they said they sold 20,000 of them. So I'm like, they just did $40,000 in revenue in a day on a 24-hour sale. And then I opened it up, and then in a single city, they have 10 of these things running. So I saw that there was a massive appetite for these local businesses to do this type of marketing, and for consumers to get on this. So we had a couple of things. So I had about a 20-person company with MenuPalace, right? I had salespeople, I had some administrators, and we had relationships with restaurants. And then what we also had is we had an email list of about 47,000 email addresses that we had collected through MenuPalace to our directory. And we were sending out a newsletter once a week with new things going on with restaurants, the new restaurants that were opening up, specials, discounts, blah, blah, blah. And so we took I went to the first guy, is this guy, Steve Soleri. He owned a place called Coca-Cola Zone in Toronto.
You're good at remembering names.
Steve was a character. Yeah. Steve was a good guy. I'm sure he's still around. I haven't seen him in decades. And so I went to Steve and I pitched this idea to him. And Steve, he said, yeah. And it was like this really nice Italian restaurant. And I remember we did something like, $50. And the thing is like, if I would have said to him, Steve, like, do this thing where you're giving a $50 credit at the restaurant, do it, sell it for like, sell it for, and he said, okay, I'll do like $30 for a $50 credit. I would always make a final push at the end. I go, instead of 30, make it 20. It's just more like, it's more appealing. So I would always try to get a better deal.
Wow.
So I would get the better deal from him, and then he would post it, and then he would sell. I remember those first 24 hours, we would launch it, and we started selling hundreds of them. People went crazy for this because we had that list of 47,000 people who were interested in restaurants, right? Because they had kind of qualified themselves. So they were interested in restaurants. And so it started selling, and we're halfway through the day, we did $10,000 in revenue, and I'm calling Steve. I go, Steve, you okay? He's like, yeah, keep it going. Like I want to keep it going. And so then I'm sitting there, we're halfway through the day. I'm like, holy shit, I need another deal for tomorrow. I didn't have another deal for tomorrow. So I was like, well, I don't want to do another restaurant because like 2 restaurants in a day, it wasn't the premise. Like it was supposed to be just like local deals with different places. So back then I was like, I don't know, I probably could have just got another restaurant, but I said I need a different business. So I just called a car wash out of the blue. And I'm like, hey, this is who I am. This is this and that. And they're like, okay. I go, look, go to this webpage right now. Right? Like I actually went to the guy and I brought my laptop and I had to plug it in and get on his, like, I don't even think it was Wi-Fi. I don't know what he had back then. And so I got on and I went and I showed it to him and I said, you see this?
Yeah.
I go, I launched this at midnight last night. This is how much we're doing. You want to do this with your car wash? And so on the spot, while the first deal was running, like deal from day 1, the day 2 deal, I quickly set it up with the car wash guy. I literally stole some graphics from like a Google search because there was no, maybe there was at the time, there was like a Shutterstock type of thing.
And you're doing this with the same team from MenuPalace?
This I was just doing by myself. So because the MenuPalace team was still running MenuPalace. So I just took whatever resources I had from MenuPalace and I had the web pages set up. And so I'm doing this. I got the car wash guy to agree to do this. So while the first deal is running, I'm setting up the second deal with the car wash guy, me by myself.
Yeah.
And so the restaurant deal closes. Now I got the car wash running. And I'm like, shit, now I need somebody else. And so then I went to a gym and then I did. And so I was literally 7 days a week. I was hustling to try to get to the next guy while I was like running the first deal because I'm trying to administrate the first deal. And then I'm trying to get the second deal while the first deal is running. I'm setting up the second deal. I'm running customer service because people are calling because these are thousands of people buying these coupons in real time. Anyways, to make a long story short, I started quickly at the same time I'm doing this, I started hiring other people to help me. I started pulling resources off of my MenuPalace team, and then we kind of ramped it up. And I think we got to like completely organically without any cash infusions, maybe another 50 employees, 60 employees on top of the 20 that we had.
Okay.
But it was bootstrapping. There was no funding. I didn't understand this word funding. I never raised a penny in my life. Right. So then what started happening, because the numbers were so public, we started getting calls from venture capitalists. And so I had 6 different venture capitalists knocking my door down. Yeah. And they're saying, we want to invest in this and this. And so I made a deal with one of them. It was $32 million. A large part of it was secondary. Secondary means that like a portion of it went into the bank to finance the business, and a portion of it was me selling my shares in the company. And when someone told you they're willing to give you $32 million for what you built? I didn't understand what this number meant. This is like to me coming and offering me $320 billion. Like these numbers didn't compute to me. I'm a kid from Canada. Like I wasn't in those circles. Right. I wasn't in those circles to understand that. I had come off of being before an employee, and I got to a point where I was making like. So at no moment you didn't pause and say, holy shit. By the way, it was 32 million US. So I was making revenue in Canadian dollars, and I was making my salary in Canadian dollars, like my salary from my previous business in Canadian dollars. This was US dollars. These were US VCs who came in. It was a combination. It was like the minority investor was a Canadian venture capitalist, but the majority of that $32 million came from New York. And to me, New York was like being somebody from Toronto and not having experience in this. When New York, and I look, I'm like, dude, these are funds. These are like these guys have like $5 billion funds. Wow. When I'm seeing numbers with B's, I don't understand it. It didn't compute to me. So, but how were you feeling in that moment? You were just not even able to. I just didn't want to fuck it up.
Okay.
But I was pretty aggressive about it. And I have to hand it to myself. Like, I didn't even realize I was capable of this, because when these guys came, I was like, because I felt really confident when all 6 of them are trying to knock down my door.
Okay.
And I was just like, I was putting them off, and I don't even know I don't know how I got this. Like, I don't know how I got the kind of wherewithal from a negotiation perspective to know that if I entertain these guys too much, if I seem too eager, then I'm not going to get the deal I want, or I might not get a deal at all.
Well, I think you weren't playing a game, right? Especially because you're like,
I was too busy.
You were too busy, but also like knowing what it feels like to have nothing means like, I'm not going to pit people against each other to optimize my gain. I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other and continue forward. I
can't do that. I'm not really good at posturing, because I don't remember the stuff that I'm supposed to remember when it comes to posturing and that kind of like, I don't want to say deceptive. People do it all the time in negotiations. I just don't know how to do it. I can't keep up with it. So I just, look, this is what it is.
Okay.
And so when they're all approaching me, it just came to a point where I had multiple guys. The guy that I eventually did the deal with, the gentleman who I did the deal with, good guy. The reason he got it wasn't necessarily even because he had the best deal. He was just the guy who was at my door most often. Wow. He was the guy who would show up in the morning with, like, at 7 a.m. with donuts and coffee, saying, "Gary, come on, do this deal with me."
Right.
And so I eventually said to, like, him and his group, they flew from New York. It was all these, what was really fascinating to me is how fit the VCs were from New York. I've never seen people that fit before. And I was like, wow, Americans? That was like my first taste of Americans, you know? And these guys came and they showed up and they had like their little Blackberries and stuff. And they were just like, listen, I'm making ourselves like sound like we're cavemen in Toronto, but as compared to New York, as compared to America, we kind of are. And so at the time, this was in 2011, these guys show up, they're super fit. They're like smart guys. They're wearing suits. They're VCs. They're, okay, cool. And they're in my office and they're pitching, and I couldn't believe the shit that was coming out of my mouth. And my partner was looking at me, and I said, "Listen, guys," I go, "we can do this deal. You need to." They go, "Okay, Gary, we need like 5 months for due diligence, right?" And I said, "You have 30 days." And my partner's sitting there. And my partner's sitting there. He's worried. He's like, "Gary, you're gonna fuck up this deal."
Right.
And they're like, "Gary, it's not enough time. Like, we need to really go into your books." I go, "Guys, this business is a year old. We agreed on valuation. We agreed on everything. 32 million. Okay, cool." I go, "This business is a year old. There's not that much for you to go." I didn't even know how I knew this. I go, "There's not that much in terms of diligence for you guys to figure out. The books aren't that old.
Wow.
Go in, take a look. You have access to my team. You have access to me. You need to close within 30 days. Close. You don't have to be done due diligence. I don't care when you're done due diligence. You need to close, and the wire needs to hit my bank account."
Right.
In 30 days.
I'm sure that transparency, though, like they appreciated it. The fact that you weren't playing games.
I wasn't playing games because I had 5 other guys who wanted to do a deal with me. And so I said to them, if you want me to pause these 5 guys, you got to finish in 30 days, and the money has to come. The money has to come through. And it worked. And again, it wasn't me posturing. It was just the reality is I have other people who want this. So I like you guys, and I'm willing to do it with you. So anyway, so we did that deal.
Wow.
Okay. We did that deal, yeah. It was around that time that I met Valeria.
Right.
And so I had the confidence, and I think that probably played a large role in me basically landing such an amazing girl, because I had this confidence of being fresh off of that deal.
Right.
I literally remember our first, it started out as not a date, but it turned into a date, because then that was the night that we kissed. It wasn't even supposed to be a date. Anyways, but that night, I was literally I was at dinner. It was me and Valeria. We had gone out as friends with a buddy of mine and a girlfriend of hers who flew in from Israel. And I remember that night I kept excusing myself because my phone kept going off because I was in the middle of closing that deal.
Wow.
So I was like, and I wasn't telling her what it was, because she was like, her and I, we were just like friends. She had let me know that nothing was going to happen between us. And so I was like, just cool with her, we were just out. And I didn't even think of her in that way anymore, because I was respectful of the fact that she wasn't into me. And so I just kept excusing myself from the table. I wasn't telling her what I was doing. It's not like, "Hey, I'm working on a big deal. You got to excuse me."
What did she think? She thought you were talking to other girls.
I don't know what she thought. I just said I have to. It didn't dawn on me if she thought I was talking to other girls, because she had made it clear that she's not interested in me romantically. Right. So I didn't feel I needed to. I wasn't being disrespectful because it wasn't a date.
Didn't know her anything.
That whole night was that she was in from New York. She was living in New York. She was a model. She was 20 years old. And she had come to town. Her and I had met previously through some friends. And you're how old at this point? I was 38.
Okay.
So I was 38. She was 20. And she had told me previously, I had kind of asked her out on a date. I didn't even know how old she was when I asked her out. And she had told me, I guess we'll transition.
You're stealing my thunder here a little bit because I wanted to say that now, you were a little bit of Canada's darling, right? In this.
For a bit of time, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're living the good life.
Until that business went to shit. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you a little bit if you could give us any juicy stories from that time, but I think we fast forward that and just kind of get to, this moment when you meet Valeria, you start out as friends, but then you effectively get out of the friend zone. So I want to hear, how did you guys meet and how did you get out of the friend zone?
The friend zone is a derogatory thing.
What do you mean?
Well, no. Any man will tell you that a friend zone no man wants to be in the friend zone.
But didn't you get put in the friend zone?
I didn't get put in the friend zone.
Okay, forgive me.
It was mutual because what happened was.
Tell me the story.
I had met her at a Shabbat dinner a year previously. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, but when she was 19, but it makes me sound terrible.
That's older than 18. That's fine.
Thank you. No, but I'm saying I didn't know how old she was at the time. It didn't cross my mind because to me, she was this she was this beautiful girl that I met at a Shabbat dinner. Mm-hmm. But I remember talking to her and she kind of passively said, she has a boyfriend.
Okay.
So I didn't after I left that night, it's not like I was pining away for her after that. It was just I met a girl. She was a beautiful girl.
You're so matter of fact.
And she said she had a boyfriend.
Okay.
Right. But I remember her and I noticed her. Mm-hmm. And so a year later, my buddy Mika, he said to me, hey, there's this new banquet hall that opened up and we should go to it. I'm like, why am I going to a banquet hall? What are you talking about? I'm 38. It's Saturday night. What are you talking about? Let's go out. We're going to meet some girls. Mm-hmm. And he said, remember that girl, Valeria? Mm-hmm. And again, I didn't know how old she was, nothing. I said, yeah. Because I remembered her. I said, yeah. She was, her mom just opened up a banquet hall in kind of the Russian Jewish neighborhood. And Valeria's putting together, she just invited some people that she knows because she wants to help her mom by just asking people to come and to their new restaurant to get it some exposure.
Yeah.
So she's kind of having a dinner there. Do you want to go? Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. He goes, there'll be nice girls there. They'll be meaning not the girls not that the girls at bars are not nice, but girls with potential to get married. Mm-hmm. Not Valeria, but just in general. Right. Because Valeria's putting it on. Because, so I'm like, okay. So then we got there. Valeria was there. I talked to her for a bit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, how's it going? I didn't see her for a year. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? Again, I still didn't even contemplate how old she was. I go, how's it going? And she goes, good. I go, how's that boyfriend of yours? She goes, no, we broke up. And I was like, okay. So then I knew. And then a week later, there was another banquet hall thing. Mm-hmm. And Mika told me Valeria was going to be there. Then I proactively went to that banquet hall. Mm-hmm. And I came up to her. I'm like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
And so we were talking. And I said to her something. She goes, oh, I was living in the city. She was living at her mom. She was staying at her mom's house because her mom lived in Toronto in the suburbs. She goes to me, or I said, how are you getting home? And she goes, oh, I'm going, I don't know. There were no Ubers, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, I'll drive you home. She goes, don't you live the other way? You live downtown. I go, no, it's on my way. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. It was completely the other way. So I said, okay, let me take you home. Yeah. And so her friends were there and they were like, oh, you're driving Valeria? I go, yeah. She goes, oh, we're going to come too. Oh, and they were a little drunk.
Classic.
They were a little drunk. So I have these two drunk girls in the back of the car. I have Valeria in the front of the car. And I'm just trying to talk to her to understand, what's going on. And I drop all them off. I go home. And we exchanged BBM numbers. So I'm just chatting with her, this and that. And I messaged her. I said, hey, we should go out. There was this musical, and it was the last thing I would ever do is go to a musical. But I figured she would think that I'm
cultured.
I'm a cultured dude who's comfortable with my masculinity to go to a musical, right?
Okay.
And she would appreciate it, and and I thought that's something she would like, even though it's something I would hate. And so she said, you know what? Because now at that point we had established that we had some mutual friends. She goes, yeah, we should all go. And at that point, that was a pivotal moment for me because when she said we should all go, that was her very polite way of turning me down.
Okay.
That was her polite way of turning me down.
But that's not friend zoning you.
That was her polite way of turning me down. That's when you say friend zoning, look, I'm not really sure what that means. But what I'm saying is she didn't want to hurt my feelings. Okay. And the reality is that a girl as beautiful as Valeria is, they're typically not as kind as she was with letting me know that she wasn't interested. Okay. She wasn't like, no, I don't want to go with you. And she wasn't like that. She was, let's all go together. Meaning I don't want to go on a date with you. Right. But if you really want, we can all go together as friends. You know what I mean? That was her and the way she did it was she was very kind in the way she did it. She could have been mean in the way she did it. Right. And I had enough experiences with those girls too, so I knew the difference. Okay. And so I understood she wasn't into it. No problem. Okay. And I realized I'm a lot older. And at that point, I had asked our mutual friend, "How old is Valeria?" And they told me, and I said, "Oh, okay, like she's too young. She's too young. I get it. I don't want to,
Okay.
And then that was leading up to that night where she was. So we were just BBMing with each other. So at that point, I dropped everything, and I was just like, I figured anybody who's this kind, and anybody who's just such a good and decent person. Probably, quite frankly, knows other women who are also like, she probably is friends with other women who are decent people, who are decent girls. So I figured maybe she has friends that are, because she was very mature. So I figured she's probably friends with other women who are older than her, and who are also like nice people. Because, people kind of tend to stick with their own kind, from that perspective. So I just became friends with her, and I dropped all the, trying to,
put the moves on her.
Yeah, and I was just like cool with her, and I respected that she was younger.
You became friends, genuine friends.
Friends, again, for my purpose to be like, again, like maybe she knows other girls, right? Yeah. Because I was already 38, and I figured I'd want to get married. Maybe she knows somebody who's 25, 30, I don't know, right? Because she was in that crowd. Her friends were all much older.
Okay.
It wasn't just like me who came along. It's not like I picked her up and like she was around other like teenagers. Like she was in a group of friends that were all in their late 20s.
Okay.
She was the youngest one. Anyways, so one night she calls me. She goes, she was living in New York. Her mom was living in Toronto. She called me and she goes, "Look, I'm here." It was like a long weekend. Nobody was in town. And she goes, "What are you doing tonight?" She BBM'd me, and I said I had no plans. And this was because I had no plans because I was in the middle of making a deal. Right. And so I was just at home on my phone and on my computer trying to close this deal. And she goes, "Do you want to like take me and my friend out to dinner?" Because we, in reality, she just didn't know anybody else, right? And I said, "Okay." So I called my buddy Mika, and I said she has her friend who's in from Israel, and Mika was also looking to meet someone serious. And I said, "Why don't you come? Because remember Valeria?" And he was like, yeah, of course. I said, "So she's here with her friend. Who knows?" I go, "There's nothing going on between me and Valeria, but if you want," like I was actually did it because I thought maybe there'd be a chance that he could meet her friend, right? And something might happen. Yeah. And so the four of us went for dinner. I was going back and forth, going back to that situation. I was going back and forth trying to close this deal. And then that night, I could see Mika was getting restless. He wasn't interested in her friend. And that's it. And he kind of just like took her friend. And I said, "You know what?" Valeria goes, "I don't want to go home yet." And I said, "Okay, we can keep hanging out." Again, I still had no intention, nothing. And Mika said, I'll take her friend home. And then Gary, you can take her home afterwards. I said, "Yeah, no problem."
Solid friend.
Again, but he wasn't setting it up for me. It wasn't.
But even still.
No, but I wasn't trying anything. And he wasn't trying anything with her friend.
Yeah.
And it was just because it was just like, we're all from the same kind of neighborhood. Culturally, we're all the same. So it wasn't this like, okay, I'm going to be alone with her here and you be alone with her here. And let's try to put our moves on these. No, it was just like, okay, just drive her home. Right. It wasn't like, All right. And so that night I said to her, "Well, what do you want to do?" And she goes, "I don't know. Like, what do you want to do?" So we went to like this lounge and neither of us really drink, but I don't know why, but I bought a bottle of champagne. And so we each had a glass of champagne and then we kissed. And then during the kiss, I knew she'd be my wife.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And then like 7-8 days later, because then at that point, like now we're dating, we're dating. So about 8 days later, I said to her, "I don't want to scare you and I'm not proposing to you, but my intention is for you to be my wife." And she's 20 years old. And I said, "I understand that is scary to you because I'm a lot older than you. But I'd rather be telling you this now than trying to be sneaky with you and like spring this on you later and feel like I'm doing something, whatever. So I'd rather be transparent with you. Right. If you're not okay with that being my intention, I'm not here to like have a fling with you. I plan for you to be my wife. That is my intention towards you." Right. She didn't really know what to do with this information. She was just like, she's 20 years old. So she said to me, "Come meet my mother. And we'll see if my mother approves of us to continue dating, then we can continue dating. Right. Otherwise, like, you're out."
Right. But it's also, I mean, and again, not to embarrass you, but I think it's very sweet that someone who really prides themselves in being such a logical person and who even kind of like dismissed the woo-woo a little bit, something you've told me, and I feel very privileged that you've shared with me, that you said in that moment, like your soul recognized her soul. And you just knew that you were connected and that was your person.
As soon as we kissed, I knew she'd be my wife. That's in that moment, so I knew she'd be my wife because up until that moment, I had gotten to know her. I skipped a lot of it because when we were BBMing, there was no bullshit. There was no me trying to get with her. There was no her playing games with me. There was no games. Everything was just like natural. We were just literally just, you know, I knew that this woman is off limits. She's not interested in me, and she was polite about it.
But that almost helped you guys get to know each other, like no frills.
There was no pressure. There was no what's going on here.
Right.
And when we kissed, it wasn't like, you know, like I think this is how I'm going to do it. There was none of that. There was no posturing. There was no nothing. Yeah. And it just happened. Then at that point, like that's it. I felt it and I knew. And listen, I was also 38 and I had enough experience that I understood what I had in front of me. I understood the value of this human being.
Absolutely.
And so I went to go meet her mother, and I walked in, and she pulls me aside, and she had already known of me, right?
Okay.
So she was like...
What do you mean by that? Just clarify. She had known of you? Why?
Well, the thing is, at that point, I had like, I don't know, like... when she was out, before she opened up her banquet hall, I had been to some places where she was. Like, her mom's only 2 years older than me. So she had been to some places where I was too, and I had dates, and there were women, and there was she kind of knew of me, and people would talk badly about me.
You had a reputation.
I had a reputation not because I'm like I was like some Romeo. I had a reputation because by the time you're 38 years old, if you start dating when you're in your like mid 20s, let's say as an example,
right,
and you're dating for like 15 years or whatever it is, you're gonna date people, and there's gonna be kind of like a trail left behind you of people who you've dated or you've been on dates with.
Right.
That for whatever reason I would go on a date with somebody, and if I didn't like them, it wasn't, I don't know, I just didn't go out on a date with them again. But people would get upset about that.
Okay.
And so you have people who felt like, I don't
slighted.
know. Yeah, they felt slighted because you'd go on a date or two, it didn't work out, and see you later,
but
and that's it.
Her mom didn't think any less of you.
No, because she understood that he's 38 years old. He's lived in this community for his whole life. And of course, he's dated a lot of the people in this community.
So then when Valeria brings you to meet her, how did she react and how did she take to you?
She said, let's go for a smoke. And I said, I don't smoke.
Okay.
And she goes, come with me. So it was at her mom's banquet hall, which was already opened and operating. So I went outside with her mom, and it's me and her. And she looks at me, she goes like, in Russian, she goes like, "Что хочешь?" Like, what do you want? And I looked at her and I said, I love your daughter. I'm going to marry her. Like, that's my intention. I want to marry her. Like, we just met, you know? And she goes, okay. I go, look, I know I'm a lot older than her. And I said, honestly, if I had a kid and if I had a daughter and a dude as old as me came along with this much of an age difference, I don't know how I'd feel about it. So I can't even begin to understand how you feel about it. I said, if you need to feel better about it, you and I can keep talking, or you and I can have a subsequent meeting outside of tonight. But I want you to know what my intentions are. I'm not here for fun.
Right.
I'm in love with her.
Had you told your mom about Valeria?
Yeah, probably.
Wow.
Yeah, I probably told my mom. She wasn't surprised. She goes, how old is she? And I told her, she goes, yeah, that's about right.
Well, and so then that's interesting because kind of to move into a little bit of the narrative that you guys kind of fall prey to now, the whole, commenting on your age difference and everything, and some of the more negative names that you guys have been called, and Valeria, being a gold digger and everything during that time.
And me being a pedophile. They called me a pedophile.
That's just horrible.
I know, it is what it is. Not that I am. It just is what it is. That's what they called me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm assuming her mom gives you her stamp of approval. You guys...
Her mom said, keep dating her and we'll see.
Okay, so you keep dating.
Yeah.
All right, okay. And then at that time, so your deal is closing, right? It closed.
Already, yeah.
Okay.
Well, then 2 months later, I came to Valeria's mom's house with an engagement ring.
Right.
I didn't first ask her, can I have her hand?
You just told her. I
bought the ring and I came to her because I wanted her to understand.
Right.
Because to me, if I would have, I don't know, I didn't have a backup plan. I read the room. I understood how I felt about Valeria. I saw how she felt about me. I saw me and her mom were cool.
Yeah.
I'm actually having dinner with her mom tonight. Valeria's out of town. She's in Mexico City. I'm taking our boys and Valeria's mom and we're going out to dinner. But what I'm saying is like, yeah, I don't understand these guys who are making contingency plans. To me, there was only one way. I knew this is the woman that I love. I knew this is the one I'm going to marry.
Yep.
I knew her mom was going to be okay with it. I knew her mom was okay with it.
Yeah.
So I bought the ring. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
I went by myself. I went to the jeweler. I bought the ring. And by the way, I already kind of understood because Valeria and I, we had traveled this and like we were in New York and we were like at Tiffany's and I'm like, hey, what kind of styles do you like? So she kind of understood where it was going. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So she wasn't like, I don't want to talk about her ring. And I'm like, hypothetically, what would be, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so her sizing was really simple. When they asked what the size, I go, well, what's the smallest size a human woman can wear? And they said, and I said, because she was like a dainty little thing. So I said, just give me the smallest one, right? That was how I sized her ring. And so, I just showed her mom. Her mom started crying and I told her, pull yourself together because we got to go back in the house. And if we go back in because Valeria was at the house, because we went with Valeria and I called her mom outside. I go, come with me outside. And I told her mom, I go, listen, you got to pull yourself together because if you're going to go out with tears in your eyes, Valeria's not stupid. She's going to understand what I just told you.
Yeah.
So she calmed herself down. She pulled herself together. We went back and nothing was nothing. Valeria to this day promises me that she didn't know. And so then I said, okay, I said to Valeria, you know what? Let's take a trip. Listen, I closed my deal. I was on cloud nine. I got at that point, it's like, I got the money. I got the girl. Life is beautiful. Like I'm pulling this shit off. Right.
And
again, remembering where I came from to this point in my life where I have like literally the girl of my dreams. And I just got this money. I bought this ring. I'm like, hey, let's go to Israel. I want to go to Israel because she's Israeli. She grew up in Israel. I said, let's go to Israel. And I had plans to propose to her there.
Right. But pause there for a second because so you're on cloud nine, you closed this deal, but that wasn't the end of it, right? You thought that there was going to be more after that.
Yeah. So after we got engaged, I thought because that $32 million kind of raise/sale was for a minority share in the company.
Right.
So the company was valued so high that I still had a massive amount of equity in that company. But so I had proposed to Valeria basically 2 months after that meeting with her mom at the banquet hall. Maybe 2.5 months later, I proposed to her. We went to Israel with the ring and I proposed to her. And then about the wedding, we had been engaged for a year, or we had planned, like the engagement was a year-long engagement. A month before the wedding, I went through this huge traumatic, I had this thing where like the whole business fell apart. Not just my business, the whole industry fell apart. So the whole industry of daily deals, if you kind of go back and look what happened to Groupon's valuation, everything fell apart for multiple reasons that there's no point in getting into. And when the industry was going up, we were growing the fastest. When the industry was shrinking and declining, we were shrinking the slowest, right? So we were outperforming on both the bull run and the bear run. And so when it was going down, I went from this like high, and then I went to this low, right? Even though I had already taken a sufficient amount of money off the table that we were okay, but it wasn't going to be the same scenario that I had presented to Valeria as the reality at the time.
Right.
And so if that second deal would have gone through, it would have just been, nobody would have to work ever again. Like we could have just lived and not even thought about it anymore. We were still good, but not as good as I thought we would be. So I came to her. She's at this point 21, maybe. Not even, I don't know. Like, yeah, we were like 9 months, 10 months into the engagement. And I was feeling very self-conscious about it because when I had met her, it was under the premise of like, here's everything that's going on. And
you actively told her like the dollar amounts and everything.
Once the deal got done, I told her the dollar amount.
Okay.
She was my fiance.
Yeah.
It's not like she's not just some girl I'm dating.
Right.
She's my fiance. I told her this is what's going on. This is what listen, I mean, she didn't really have a lot of like acumen in this arena. So she was relying on me to give her all the disclosures. And I wanted to give her the disclosures because like, I actually remember right after I proposed to her, we were in Jerusalem at the King David Hotel. We got back to our hotel in Tel Aviv after she had said yes. And we had met some friends and we had this little engagement dinner. It was all like a big surprise. I broke my finger. It was a whole different story. I got so nervous. I slammed the door into my finger on the way to proposing to her because I was so nervous about it. Anyway, so we got back to the hotel and that night I went to basically disclose everything to her because like, you're going to be my wife. Here's what's going on. She already knew kind of where I came from. And now it's like, okay, here's what's the situation. Here's money. This money is here. This money's there. This.
This is before things were falling apart.
Yeah. This was like right after I proposed to her. Okay. So we're in Israel. We go from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. We're in the hotel. I sit down with her after she said, yes, she's going to be my wife. So to me, it's like, I'm looking at a person who like, this is it. Like, this is my person. This is my partner in life. This is everything. So I'm like, then I went on to go, okay, here's how much I have here. Here's how much I have here. This is all now ours. So I just said to her, all of this is yours and mine. So I'm telling you this so you, number one, if anything should happen to me, you're going to know where everything is. Not that I thought anything would happen to me, but I started planning for those contingencies
right away.
Responsible thing to do. So I'm like, this is where everything is. This is, what's going on, this and this. The interesting thing about it is that, and I'll get to the story about what happened afterwards, but when I proposed to Valeria and when I married Valeria, it didn't even cross my mind what she would do for a living.
Right.
Like, I don't know. And it comes back to that whole, as a man, I don't know. It just, to me, if a woman wants to work, she can. It didn't dawn on me, right? The same way that I took care of my mom, because my mom's a woman too. And so my mom doesn't have to work. That was my premise with Valeria. Like, she's not working. I didn't think she won't work. I just, the topic of work and Valeria, to me, there was never a connection in my mind between the two. Anyways, so we got back to Toronto, obviously their engagement, everything's cool. We buy this like beautiful penthouse condo in the city. We furnish it, we move in, life is beautiful, everything's great. Cars, diamonds, all this shit, right? And everything falls apart. And so we're still okay, but we're not where I thought we were gonna be. Because I had the venture capitalists, I had the media on me, everyone was telling me, people were already planning how I'm going to invest hundreds of millions of dollars with them and where they're going to put it for me. And so I was like kind of like this media darling for a period of time. I came to Valeria, 20-year-old Valeria. We're engaged to be married. And I said to her, and I felt terrible. And I said to her, I go, you know what? I said, the reality has changed. We're still okay, but we're not what I thought it was going to be. And we're not what I presented to you. And so I don't want you to feel an obligation to marry me because of what I presented to you. Because it's not going to be that. It's not going to be shit, but it's not going to be that. We can call it off and I'll never tell anybody why. Like, nobody will ever know why. But I don't want you to feel trapped because you thought it was going to be something else. And I'll never tell a soul. Like, no one will ever know. And so she told me, you're crazy. Shut your mouth. Never say this shit to me again. And we got married.
So this whole narrative about her being a gold digger and everything couldn't be further from the truth.
I mean, I don't think so, no.
Right.
Well, because that being said, I don't think she'd be interested if I was broke. But like, do you know what I mean? Like, what normal woman would want to date a guy who's like broke, right? But yeah, I mean, she had that. I gave her that opportunity. It didn't even she didn't even flinch. It wasn't like it was just like, are you fucking stupid? She goes, shut up. And it's actually interesting. I have a photo in that moment. I was very emotional, and I had realized in that moment what I had, because as sad as I was about the deal not coming through. Her reaction to me telling her you can have this out, and her response to me filled me with so much joy in that moment. And there's actually a picture of her and I hugging while right after she responded that to me and comforting me about like, don't worry about this deal. Like, who cares about this? We're good. And there's actually a picture somebody took of us like having in this hug from like behind, and you can kind of see her silhouette and stuff. I have that picture somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. And not a lot of people know that story. And so that was Valeria's response to it at the time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's so important, not to say that you have to defend yourself by any means, but I think once you're ready to give that insight really helps shape a narrative that is just the honest one. And I think kind of going into the power of personal branding, you now have this platform, right? That you can choose to share what you want to share and what you don't want to share. And you haven't shared that up until this point. And so I think that now that you have this stage, it's pretty powerful that you can use it to say like, no, actually, this is what happened. And I think that's, it carries a lot of weight. So now you have this, new family, you guys are building together, but, not to get too much into the details, but you had a couple of things. Like after this thing fell through, a couple of other things fell through. And so your potential...
I wouldn't say all of them fell through. I had a couple of projects. They had varying, some of them completely, I lost $500,000 trying to develop something. After that, there was another thing that had moderate level of success. I did some real estate investments and some stock investments that did reasonably well, but there was never like another like hit in the tens of millions.
Right. But so then that's why it's interesting for me, right? So you have all of this success, you meet your dream girl, you guys both understand what you have and that you're connected in a very real way, putting, like money and fame and glory aside. Now you're building this new family, and what happens is you then find out that she's been kind of doing this personal brand building project. You see this wire for $10,000, the story that you tell, and then all of a sudden kind of things shift. You end up choosing to partner with your wife.
Oh, I didn't. No. I asked if I could partner.
You asked if
you could partner. And she agreed. She was 26 years old now.
Okay. But how does that, the occurrence of that, kind of change your whole perception, if it does, of what it means to be a man? Meaning, like, you had achieved all of the success, a couple things fell through. Now you see that your wife is doing something. You identify an opportunity there that's being driven by your wife, and now essentially you're working with, but also working for her. How did that affect you?
It never felt that I was working for her, but it always felt like a partnership. It didn't affect my. You got to understand something. Mm-hmm. When I talk about traditional male roles, it's not out of ego. It's not like me, pounding my chest and saying, "Oh, I am a man," and you. It's not like that. Right. It's just like, to me. So Valeria came to me and she said, "I want to go to school." Mm-hmm. Right? Because Valeria had graduated high school, but she didn't go on, after that. So now she's 26 years old. We have 2 kids. She's mostly like a stay-at-home mom. Rightfully so. Our kids were really small, and she wanted to do something. She was like, "I want to go to school." She was, "What do you suggest?" I said, "Well, I mean, if you're going to go to school, go get a business degree, because I'm doing business in various capacities. If you want to go to school, why don't you get a business degree, so that at least that way you can help me, like, strategically and whatever it may be." That's the piece that I'm missing. I'm missing the formal education.
Oh, wow.
Right? So with me missing a formal education, if you can go and learn about stuff, and again, it wasn't my intention for her to go like learn to get a business degree and maybe an MBA and then come back and work. It was more like, you'll then have knowledge that I can tap to help in my projects. I still didn't think that she would work. I was just thinking, if you're going to do it, meaning if we're going to make an investment into an education for you, it should be something that's going to help us holistically as a family. So she goes, "I don't want to get a business degree. It doesn't interest me." Okay. So I said, "Okay, then do whatever you want." Right? So she goes, "I want to get a degree in nutrition." I was like, okay. I'm like, sure. I thought it was a little silly, but I said, sure, if that's what you're into. So she went and she got a diploma in nutrition, and she started trying to see clients. And she would meet with women who were like overweight, and she would get frustrated. I think she did two meetings, and they paid her whatever, like, for her session by the hour. And then they came to her and they were like, a week later, they said, like, "I'm still overweight. What's going on?" And Valeria was just really frustrated. Like, it would frazzle her. She was like, "I don't want to do this." And I'm like, don't do it.
Right. So
then she took her nutrition knowledge and she started making videos of like, healthy brownies and like 2-ingredient fruit roll-ups for the kids. But I didn't know she was doing it. I didn't question her because I was busy. I had a viral news website getting, 100 million sessions or 200 million sessions a month. And I was kind of entrenched in that, which was doing reasonably well. And she was doing content, and I didn't really pay much attention to it. And she was doing it between YouTube and Instagram. And then one day a wire for $10,000 came in, and she was the last person I asked, because I didn't even think she knew where we banked. And so she goes, "Yeah, that was this probiotic company that paid me to have their product in my content." And I said, "What content? What are you doing?" And so she showed me, and at that point I said, "Look, this is real media.
Right.
This is a business. Can we partner to do this together?" She goes, "This isn't a business." I go, "Valeria, this is like where media is going. Like, this is really inspiring to me. Like, the fact that somebody just paid $10,000, that proves it out." And so she goes, "Okay." And so I said to her, I go, "Look, you got to make a decision now, because if I'm getting involved and we're doing this together as a family, we're going all the way. Like, we're not doing this to make passive income. We're not doing this. This isn't a side hustle. If I'm getting involved and if you and I are doing this together, we're going for it. Like, we're aiming for like Oprah territory, and we're aiming for you to be a household name."
And you were able to do that and make that decision because at that point the business you were working on no longer existed, and so you were able to make a shift?
Yeah, but it was 2 reasons. Yeah, so that business stopped. We made money in that business. We just didn't have an exit in that business, but we did well in that business. it wasn't about that. It was like, I could have chosen to do something else. Like, again, I wasn't starting from a place of not having money. I had money to start any business I want. But Valeria, when I looked at the content, I thought she was brilliant. And then the fact that on top of that, somebody paid 10 grand because they also thought she was brilliant. So to me, because I believed she was brilliant and from a content perspective and super talented, and somebody who was willing to pay for that believed the same thing, I just did 1 + 1 = 2. And I'm like, okay, this is feasible. We can get scale here.
Right.
So then I just said to her, explain to me how you're like, so once she agreed, I said, tell me what your day looks like. And she says, I spend an hour a day in front of the camera, 10 hours a day editing.
Yeah.
We hired a videographer. We started scaling in terms of like, with the goal was to make more and better content for her to become a better creator and to increase her volume, like to increase her output. And then we scaled the team, and to make a long story short, now here we are.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's amazing to me. And I mean, I think that's just how life works, that every step along the way of your story, from needing to, put yourself through college to then what you did with the stuffed animals, like everything built on the last thing that you did, so that ultimately when you reach this point, you had all of those tools and all of that knowledge and, quite frankly, funds to then see what this was and take it to where it is now and where it's going in the future. And interestingly, as I was preparing for this conversation with you, I thought of something, which is that, like you kind of mentioned, you've gotten a lot of flack online for being this like old school guy with old school values, or however people want to, label it. But really, when you come down to it, you might balk at this a little bit, but you kind of did the most feminist thing there is, which is to see. My wife? Yes, but like more than that, you just saw someone, regardless of their sex, for their talent. Yeah. And then you identified that and said, you as an individual are so brilliant, as you said, now let's take it to the moon.
So yes, absolutely. But I also understood that the female market, the female market online in terms of like audiences and the monetization opportunities associated with this audience, this is like currently like the millennial female audience is probably one of the most highly desired audiences on the planet.
Listen, I was trying to make you look good, so just take it,
No, I understand, but I mean, I want to be honest with the fact that, I mean, I saw the opportunity for what it is. And look, to me, less now, but I would go through times of real guilt about her working as hard as she does.
Oh, wow.
Because it's kind of like my antithesis of, I didn't even think about what you do for a living, and now you're working and you're doing 12, 14-hour days, and you're flying all over the world, and you're doing these sponsored content, and and so to me, it's like I'm trying to give her not an easy, but like my goal at the wedding. It's like it's in our wedding video. It's like I just vowed to do everything I can to make her happy, and so at the times when the stress of her career would get to her, it would really bother me. And so the way I kind of talk myself off of that, and maybe it's an excuse and maybe I am an asshole, but the way I talk myself down from that is to say the way that she is and the way that she took initiative in the beginning, if she wouldn't be doing this and she'd be doing nothing, or if she was like still doing those like hourly nutritionist sessions that she hated doing, I think she'd be far unhappier not living up to her potential. So then I kind of changed my own narrative, and I said to myself, I'm actually making her happy. It's just a different path. So instead of giving her this like easy life where she could do nothing, where she had the opportunity to do nothing, but she chose to do something, and now I'm supporting that.
Right.
And our family is benefiting from it.
Exactly.
And a lot of people are benefiting from it too.
Well, thank you for that, because that allows me to then go into, where we find ourselves today, which is, so you identify an opportunity, you bring your family to Miami, and then as of like about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, you say, okay, so as to perhaps relieve some of the stress directly from Valeria, I'm now also going to open up this second avenue. Yeah.
So to me, the big issue is that like, as we kept going with this, the business was always just relying on Valeria's bandwidth. So she was like this human bottleneck, and it was just putting a lot of strain on her in terms of the amount of work that she had to and continues to do. And so we had started a clothing brand a couple of years ago in the hopes of, if we can launch this clothing brand, leveraging the attention that Valeria has and the quality of her personal brand, then we can create a separate entity that does not require her time.
Right.
But what was happening there is that was even putting more work on her plate, because it turns out that she's also like really good at designing clothes and and understanding fabrics and doing all that. So then we, anytime we tried to hire somebody to do that, everything fell flat. But then when Valeria got involved, it did great. So now it's kind of defeating the point where now she's doing everything on the personal brand side, and now she has to run and do all of the stuff on the fashion brand. So to me, it's like, okay, forget it. We won't do that either. And so now with Creator Method, I'm really excited about it because we are able to leverage the asset of Valeria's personal brand. We are able to leverage the fact that look what we did with Valeria. We now have a large team. We have a lot of expertise in this. And now we can take the expertise and then we can put a team in place to leverage that asset without Valeria's time involved. Meaning Valeria still shows up. She'll host summits. She'll do that. But it's not like the daily anymore. So that's what I'm most encouraged about with Creator Method. Yeah.
And I mean, selfishly, obviously, I have insight into the positive impact you're making. And I'm, obviously so excited of where we're going with this. But also I have the privilege of having the insight to understand that to continue, bringing it back to this theme of what it means to be a man, I personally find it extremely beautiful that you've identified this opportunity. Why? To ultimately leave this legacy for your family, for yourself, the impact you're going to make on the world. And I think that is the ultimate act of service.
Well, thank you.
And so that is, something that, again, I find a privilege to be privy to and excited to be a part of. And, to kind of round this out, I can imagine that from where you started, you never thought you would be coaching a bunch of women, really, to understand who they are and the best version of themselves, to then put that best version up on such a public stage, which is social media. Yeah. But also, had you not had all of that leading up to this, I don't think, and I think you'd agree with me, you wouldn't be the level of mentor that you are. And that's just not me saying that, but again, having the privilege of people coming into our office to have their one-on-ones with you and to say how profoundly you've touched their lives. Like, to say it kind of brutishly, like you've gone through so much shit that then you get to use that shit as perspective to then pay it forward and really shape lives in such a positive way. So
thank you.
Kudos to you. And I don't know, I think I kind of just want to leave it there. I know that at the end of the day, or at the end of the episodes, you ask if there are any questions. And I guess maybe I'll just round this out by asking one, and I'll pick one submitted by the community. And the one I want to pick is, can you name the biggest lesson you are grateful for and how that lesson will ultimately shape where you're going in the future?
And no one's going to save me.
No one's going to, you were really quick with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it. I realized as a kid, no one's coming to help me out. I got to figure this out.
And you'll always just figure it out.
What choice do I have? Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think that people's plan Bs are doing them a disservice. I also think that I have a big challenge with my kids because unfortunately they do have plan Bs.
Right.
And I tell them that you're at a disadvantage to me because you don't have the motivation that I had in order to get myself to a place, like to a good place.
Right.
I said, but the advantage you have is that you have me. So you have a resource in me to help guide you, even though you may not have the motivation because you're already living a life that, that I wasn't. And so, yeah, that's the biggest lesson that I learned through just, kind of practicality is that no one's coming to save me. And it's interesting because it's a theme that continues to be part of my life. And it's like when things get hard, I don't have somebody else to look to. It's like, can you help me figure this shit out?
Yeah.
It's always me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's cool.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it got to a point like earlier on, I used to envy my friends who, when shit got hard, they'd have a person that they could go to, whether it was a parent or a sibling or I don't know, some like wealthy mentor, and that could bail them out, whether it was with advice or whether it was money. I didn't have that. And that's cool.
Right.
But I eventually began to kind of like that.
Okay.
And the thing is when you turn out to be capable, unfortunately or fortunately, other people are coming to you all the time. So I don't mind carrying weight. It's pretty good. And in general, rather than figuring out how to avoid problems, it's better to become stronger to be able to deal with them. Because realistically, they're not going to stop.
Okay.
And that's it.
Yeah. No, and you're not only doing that, but you're taking exactly what you said from what you've learned and paying it forward and shaping the next generation and taking your job as a father seriously to shape the next generation of men and disseminating that information and that ethos so that that continues to live on outside of you.
Yeah. So it's strange to me though. Like, it's strange to me that I'm the guy that people come to for answers. We're growing up, I didn't have any answers. My kids come to me. Sometimes Valeria comes to me. Our members come to me. People, just reaching out from my Instagram community. Not the Creator Method community specifically, but just my public Instagram community. Yeah, and it's interesting to me. It's interesting. It's fun. It's fun to be able. What I found most rewarding, because you got me thinking about it, and we'll kind of end it at this, is that the most rewarding thing for me as of recently is that people come to me with questions or when challenges present themselves. Unlike any other time in my life, I now have the answers.
Beautiful.
There's now no answer that I don't have. And anytime someone comes to me in the realm of social media or in general, or one of our boys, it's like, I feel it's almost like magic. I'm like, holy shit, I know that.
Wow.
Because I've already done that. I've already been through that experience. I've had that negative or positive experience. Yeah. And I instantly can recall a time where I did something, whether it's something tactical in business or I felt a certain way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's and that feels
that feels good. That gives me confidence I never had before. I have the answers now, which makes me feel really good.
That's amazing.
I have one last thing to say.
Okay, as always, go for it.
I have one last thing to say.
Yeah.
You and I met probably going on 5 months now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to say that out of all of the experience that I've had, which now, I've kind of shed a light on that in the last probably 2 hours that we've been sitting here. Starting to work with you, somebody at your level of intellect and education is really it's a really pivotal moment for me in my career.
Thank you.
Because I've had a lot of help, but having someone in such close proximity to me, because you and I work in the same room all day long. And yeah, just having someone who like truly has my back as much as you do. And quite frankly, who's as organized as you are. Like, I don't have this level of organization. My notes and my pens and my things. Like, so yeah, I just really want to thank you, because you also, you represent the real pivotal kind of change in my career, but more importantly, you represent the pivotal change, I believe, for our organization and in what it is doing for members, because I'm actually able to take this constant flow of information that's running through my head, direct it to you, and then you are able to disseminate it correctly and accurately and actually get a lot of things done. So thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate it.